Winds in the east, mist coming in, like something is brewin' and 'bout to begin. Can't put me finger on what lies in store, but I feel what's to happen all happened before.
Hey everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports. So, judging by that poem that I recited earlier, most of you might already know what I'm blogging today. However, for something this special, I won't be doing this by myself. For you see, a very special guest has just blown in from the East Coast. So friends, I want you all to help me in welcoming back the hostess of Joy Unicycle, the lovely and beautiful Bonnie Joy O'Connor.
Hey Joshua! So what are we going to review today?
Glad you asked, Bonnie. Today, we're going to be talking about the lovely and practically perfect person in all of literature, Mary Poppins.
Oh, this is going to be great. No, actually, that's not what I should say. What I should say, this is going to be supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, even though the sound of it is really quite atrocious. If you say it loud enough... Okay, I'll stop.
So, before we get started, how about a little backstory?
Published in 1934, the story of Mary Poppins is about a nanny who is literally blown in to 17 Cherry Tree Lane, London, and looks after the Banks children, Jane, Michael, and the twins, John and Barbara. After their previous nanny, Katie Nana, has left the house in a huff, and she'll only stay there until the wind changes from east to west. All throughout that time, Mary Poppins makes an effort to not only help the kids out of a dysfunctional situation, but also takes them on magical adventures that nobody can tell if she has conjured them up herself or if they just naturally happened. And after it's all over, she completely denies that anything happened. Altogether, Mary Poppins has about 8 books, including the first one, Mary Poppins, published in 1934. Mary Poppins Comes Back in 1935. Mary Poppins Opens the Door in 1943. Mary Poppins in the Park, 1952. Mary Poppins From A to Z in 1962. Mary Poppins in the Kitchen in 1975. Mary Poppins in Cherry Tree Lane, 1982. And Mary Poppins and the House Next Door in 1988. I'll admit, I did not grow up reading the books right away, but for middle school, I was tasked with reading a book that did not have a movie premiere yet, and since Mary Poppins Returns did not premiere yet, it counted, so I read it. It's actually very intriguing, and that led me to eventually read the very first book, and man, oh man, this movie truly was made for, this book truly was made to be a movie. Too bad P.L. Travers didn't see it that way.
Now, to this day, I still haven't read the original P.L. Travers book yet, but in the past, I have talked about Mary Poppins while blogging the 2013 biography film Saving Mr. Banks and the 2018 sequel Mary Poppins Returns, which are both still beloved films in my eyes. Anyway, with my friends at Musical Theater Village kicking off 2025 with the stage musical of Mary Poppins, now would be a great time to share our thoughts and experiences on the beloved movie where Walt Disney brought her to life on screen. So, ready, Bonnie?
Goats butt, birds fly, and Bonnie O'Connor is definitely ready.
Great. So, released on August 27th, 1964, the movie is Mary Poppins. Now, on for the plot of the movie. When Jane and Michael Banks, the children of the wealthy and uptight Banks family, are faced with the prospect of a new nanny, they are pleasantly surprised by the arrival of the magical Mary Poppins. While embarking on a series of fantastical adventures with Mary Poppins and her performer friend Bert, the siblings try to pass on some of their nanny's sunny attitude to their preoccupied parents. So, what do we think of this? Well, to this very day, Mary Poppins is a timeless Disney musical classic, and it's got to be one of my favorite films from Walt Disney's time. What about you, Bonnie?
Still my absolute favorite live-action Disney movie. And I grew up watching this ever since I was a kid, and it just blew me away, and it still blows me away in so many different ways that we will definitely get into. And I just fell head over heels in love with this movie and kept wishing that the same thing could happen to me. I still remember I would jump through picture books wishing that I could go on an adventure in there, or wishing that I could laugh and fly into the ceiling, or I would even grab umbrellas and see if the wind could take me away. I loved that movie so much. I still love the songs. I love the characters. I love the actors. I love the artwork in there. I love everything about this movie. I I know most of the time we can't say most of the time we say that there's no such thing as a perfect movie, but this movie is practically perfect in every way.
So, in order to explain what we mean, let's head over to Mustang Notes. Now, those of you who have seen Save Mr. Banks might already know that it was really hard for Walt Disney to get the film rights to make Mary Poppins into a movie, mainly due to P.L. Travers being very difficult to work with.
There were definitely a variety of reasons why she heavily objected to her character being transferred into a Disney movie. But the overall reason was because she thought that it was too sentimental and silly. The fact that it had cartoons, the fact that it had songs attached to it, and with very unique rhymes, and well, also the fact that, well, Mary Poppins' character was kind of changed a bit, because I in the movie she's very, she's got a cheery disposition. She's got rosy cheeks. She plays games. She is kind, but she's also firm. And for the most part, she's no nonsense, despite that she actually has to do with a lot of the nonsense that goes on for all the outings that she takes the Banks children on. In the book, she is very stern, like no nonsense whatsoever. Again, despite being, caught up in these nonsense adventures, or probably being the cause of them. But she's still very caring. She'll always be truthful. She's always firm with the kids. And, well, the books always describe her as that of a Dutch doll, tall and bony, with short black hair, large blue eyes, and a snub nose, and a prim, pursed mouth. She originally objected to Julie Andrews being Mary Poppins because she thought that that Julie Andrews was too attractive for the role. However, when she did meet up with Julie Andrews, she said, "Well, you do have the nose for it." So, at least that was in her favor. But yeah, she really did not like how the movies handled the book.
Anyway, to sum it up, Walt Disney's daughters fell in love with the Mary Poppins books and made Walt promise to make a movie based on them. He first attempted to purchase the film rights from P.L. Travers as early as 1938, but Travers repeatedly refused. She did not believe that a film version would do justice to her books.
While I am typically of the mind that movies cannot do books justice, depending on which movies and which books, I really feel like that they are their own style. And P.L. Travers eventually came to accept that, though definitely not right away. And I feel that way for the movie. So if I was asked which version I thought was better, I would say they're both good. Because I the movie did a lot of things that the book I couldn't do, and the book did a lot of things that the movie couldn't do. I and they both are amazing in their own way.
For more than 20 years, Walt Disney made periodic efforts to convince P.L. Travers to release the rights, including visiting her home in Chelsea, London. He finally succeeded in 1961, although Travers demanded and obtained script approval rights. The Shuren brothers, who composed the film's songs and musical score, suggested that the setting be changed from the 1930s to the Edwardian era. Pre-production and music creation took about 2 years. P.L. Travers was an advisor to the production, even being billed as the film's consultant. However, she disapproved of the dilution of the harsher aspects of Mary Poppins' character. She felt ambivalent about the music and hated the use of animation, so much so that she ruled out any further adaptations of the later Mary Poppins novels. She objected to a number of elements that made it into the film. Rather than original songs, she wanted the soundtrack to feature known standards of the Edwardian period in which the story is set. However, due to contract stipulations citing that he had final cut privilege on the finished print, Disney overruled her.
It almost does make me wonder what P.L. Travers would think about the fact that the Walt Disney Company has adapted her second book.
The film was directed by Robert Stevenson, whom before this directed Johnny Tremaine, Old Yeller, 3 episodes of The Zorro Show, Darby O'Gill and the Little People, The Absent-Minded Professor, and its sequel, Son of Flubber. Filming took place between May and September 1963 at the Walt Disney Studios in Burbank, California, using painted London background scenes. Post-production and animation took another 11 months. The scene in which Mary Poppins and Bert interact with a group of animated penguins is noted for its use of the sodium vapor process. Rather than using the more common blue screen process to insert the actors into the animated footage, the actors were filmed against a white screen lit with sodium vapor lights, which have a yellow hue. A special camera was fitted with a prism that filtered this light to a separate reel of film, creating a highly accurate métis that could be used to isolate the actors from the background. This created a crisp, clean image and even allowed the partially transparent veil of Mary Poppins' costume to let through light from the background. The film's choreographers were D.D. Wood and her husband Mark Bro. Walt Disney attended the rehearsals for the rooftop scenes every day. After it was released, Mary Poppins not only became the highest grossing film of 1964, but it won 5 Academy Awards: Best Actress for Julie Andrews, Best Film Editing, Best Original Music Score, Best Visual Effects, and Best Original Song for Chim Chim Cheree. Plus, in 2013, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress as being culturally, historically, or authentically significant. Now, as a kid, I practically watched this movie a lot, and believe it or not, a long time ago, I got to participate in a one-on-one private dance class with several of the Mary Poppins music and songs, but unfortunately, after a while, I dropped out because my instructor wasn't very nice. Anyway, in my opinion, The cinematography for this movie is absolutely well done. From the setting in London, which I visited back in summer 2010, and spoiler alert, I'll be going back to London this coming summer for a family vacation, along with 2 other European destinations. There's also the Banks household, which looks a bit fancy, but a nice place to live, along with the Fidelity Fiduciary Bank, the park, and the rooftops.
One of the biggest things that fascinates me about this movie is the artistic license in the literal sense, artistic, because I the sets, I mean, they never once went to London. They never stepped outside of the Hollywood studio. They filmed it all inside a studio, built the sets, and painted London, and left space for the lighting so that it could look like a convincing sunset over London, or lights are going on and off in the houses. And it all looks gorgeous. Could they have gone to London? Sure, but the way Walt Disney did it and the effort that was put into these sets is phenomenal. And I just absolutely love it, and it looks like a place I would love to live in.
Also, I think the animated sequence is really breathtaking due to it being set in the country, and I like the way the actors interact with the animated characters.
I love the animated scenery, and admittedly, I did not notice this until recently, but I love how the background, I, the background is animated with chalk. I mean, the characters definitely are hand-drawn animation, but that's chalk animation right there, and it looks fantastic.
A couple of my favorite bits of the sequence, aside from 2 things that we might talk about later, are the carousel scene and the part where Bert rescues a fox from a party of hunters. Plus, I like that they got several talented voice actors. For example, one of the choreographers, Mark Bro, voices a cow. Paul Frees voices as a horse. Awesome! Thurl Ravenscroft voices a hog. Jimmy McDonald voices several other animals. J. Pat O'Malley voices the Master of Hounds, his hunting horse, and several others. Even Richard and Robert Sherman get to voice act in this as well. Speaking of which, we must mention that it's been about 5 months since Richard left this earth to join his brother Robert in heaven, and in my opinion, I think the songs that the Sherman brothers made for Mary Poppins are absolute classics in every way.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I love about the Sherman brothers, and the way they wrote their songs, they cheated with a lot of lyrics to make rhymes, but they did it in such a creative way, in a way that I've really never heard anybody else do. Because lyric writers usually have their own mark, and the Sherman brothers had left their mark in such a fascinating way on the music world. And you could tell it was them every time there was a ridiculous rhyme, or a rhyme that ridiculously worked well with the music. It was always fascinating. And even their quiet, simple tunes also would reach out in a unique way, whether it was Mother Earth and Father Time from Charlotte's Web, or in this case, Feed the Birds from Mary Poppins, also known as Walt Disney's absolute favorite song.
In fact, it's all thanks to the Disney Sing-Along Songs VHS collection that introduced me to several of them in the first place. However, for now, let's talk a little bit about each of the songs that stick out to us the most.
What songs stick out to us the most? All of them! I swear, all of them in Mary Poppins. They're just all too good. I love every one of them for every particular reason.
whether it's the intro song where it gets you introduced to everything, the Chim Chim Cheree getting you excited for chimney sweep or appreciating them, Bert's one-man band showing you more of Dick Van Dyke's comedy and his style, Sister Suffragette giving a little bit of history of the time, but also just so upbeat and fun during a tough time. The Life I Lead showing you the normality of Mr. Banks. Used at least 3 times for 3 different reasons, whether it's him coming home back to a normal life, or wanting his nanny to be perfect, or demanding perfection out of the already perfect Mary Poppins, or if it's the quiet desire of a child wanting her version of it, his and her version of the nanny, or even the variety of different songs that Bert and Mary Poppins sing. Edwin laughing on the ceiling with his song I Love to Laugh. Good luck keeping a straight face during that entire scene. And those dad jokes rule. Or even just Step in Time. I mean, that song is just phenomenal.
I also got to talk about the song A Man Has Dreams, and it's right after Step in Time, and where Mr. Banks realizes he is about to lose everything that he knew and loved. And for Mama, this is her favorite song, showing his vulnerability and his pain, and how suddenly it's all taken away and going to be taken away, and he knows he's going to be fired. And the way David Tomlinson carries the song and carries the moment is just gorgeous. And also how Bert is there to basically say, keep going and be there for your kids. He's not sugarcoating it and say, don't worry, be happy, it's all going to work out. No, he's being very realistic and saying, this is tough, but don't forget your kids either. You've got to be there for them and appreciate the little things that they got for you and with you.
And I already mentioned about Feed the Birds, but what are your thoughts on it, Joshua?
Well, before I answer your question, Bonnie, I would like to mention some of my favorites, starting with A Spoonful of Sugar, where Mary Poppins instructs Jane and Michael to tidy up the nursery. Like the Cinderella work song, Whistle While You Work, or even the Happy Working song, this is the kind of song where singing makes chores look like fun. Plus, I like the use of stop motion for the robin that perches on Mary Poppins' finger and the nursery toys.
Spoonful of Sugar is absolutely delightful, and I still remember singing this a lot as a kid, and every now and then I'll still hum it from time to time. I'm not ashamed to admit that. And, well, I still remember as a kid, I would snap my fingers just to see if I could just magically clean my room that way, and was very disappointed that I couldn't. Why do they make it look so easy? But I just love how it goes down, and I also love the idea behind it. And, well, I would not have known this without the Saving Mr. Banks moment, but the irony in the music where she sings, for a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down, instead of having her voice go down, it ironically goes up, because she does the unexpected, and the song demonstrates how she's going to do the unexpected.
However, when I was little, I thought the mirror bit was kind of a bit awkward, and I hope I don't offend those who like that bit.
None taken. However, I think it's fitting because Mary Poppins defies explanation, and the mirror scene for me was proof of it.
Also to note, ever since I was a kid, I couldn't believe that this song was referenced in one of the Spy Fox games.
Like the old song says, a spoonful of LaRoche's fingerprint helps the steel door go down.
Next is Jolly Holiday, which is the first of the 2 animated songs. And in my opinion, this is a wonderful dapper-styled song to listen to. And I like the part where a group of farm animals sing and where the penguin waiters join in nearing the end. By the way, I must let you guys know that the Walt Disney Company gave my musical Theater Village friends permission to use the classic costumes for their Mary Poppins stage musical.
That's really cool. And I definitely agree. I love Jolly Holiday for what it is, and just how lovely Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews sound together when singing it, as well as the other voice actors, of course. And, well, looking at the voice cast, it's really cool to hear each of them, and I have to comment about this briefly, because this cracks me up every time. So, for the penguin scene, the animators were originally going to have 4 waiters in there, and Walt Disney held back and said, waiters always reminded me of penguins, and they just went with the penguin waiters. And honestly, I could not think of it being better than this, because 4 waiters does sound, is fun in its own way, but having 4 penguins there is more whimsical and just a fun commentary.
The second animated song is Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, aka the longest word in the English language, even longer than automatopoeia. Anyway, to me, this has got to be my absolute favorite song in the entire movie. By the way, for those who don't know, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious is the kind of word that you'd say when you're speechless or that you can't make up your mind what to say. Anyway, there are 3 reasons why I love this song. Firstly, the lyrics are really simple, fun, and catchy. Secondly, I like the animated musicians that play behind Mary Poppins and Bert. And thirdly, this is one of several songs that me and several of my classmates got to sing during my second elementary school choir show, A World of Entertainment.
This is a song I'll never get tired of, and I have so much fun with. One of these days, if somebody asks me how I'm doing today, I should just say that to them. I should just say that I'm doing supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And I just love how much fun this word is, and just how much, I think arguably, next to The Wonderful Thing About Tiggers, this is the song that the Sherman Brothers had the most fun with. Or it seems like it, and it plays out like it. And it's written out like it. And that's what I love about how they write it. And, well, this song really does it for them. And, well, and fun fact, actually, when I was going to go into a spelling bee, and I think I was either in 6th grade or 7th grade, I forget which, and I shared it with my youth pastor, he immediately tested me by asking me to spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and I had no trouble doing it, much to his astonishment.
As for my thoughts on Feed the Birds, well, when I was a kid, I thought this was a really beautiful and tear-jerking song with such breathtaking visuals, due to it looking like the inside of a snow globe. And I also think it makes a wonderful and nice lullaby song. Also to note, I think Jason Schwartzman, who played one of the Sherman brothers, does a remarkable job singing it in Saving Mr. Banks back in 2013. Plus, I agree that Step in Time is a phenomenal number, and when I was a kid, I could never resist singing and dancing along to it. Also, this may be just me, but some of the lyrics, like over the rooftop, kick your knees up, and others, are just so addicting. Also, here's something that I didn't know about until recently. Step in Time is based on a popular 1930s pub song called Knees Up Brother Brown, which I don't remember if I've heard, but I should tune into it when I get the chance. The last song that I like in this movie is the ending song, Let's Go Fly a Kite. Now, believe it or not, this was the very first Mary Poppins song that I've ever heard when I was little, and I like that during the song, the Banks family sing it while going out to spend quality time at the park. While at the same time, George Banks gets a surprising promotion from Dawes Jr.
This song, Let's Go Fly a Kite, is just wonderful. It's a perfect way to wrap up the movie. Just a few moments ago, Mr. Banks had lost everything, and it seemed like he lost his mind too. But actually, it shows him taking Bert's advice and going forward all the way with it, and spending time with his kids, and finding that everything worked out after all. But in addition to it, we have to say goodbye to Mary Poppins. And while the kids barely get a chance to say goodbye to her, it's a bittersweet moment. So this is probably the happiest song out of all of them. I mean, Step in Time and Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious and I Love to Laugh are very happy songs and very super duper happy, but when you think about it, Let's Go Fly a Kite is basically about how even when life's downhill or things are going down, things will ultimately rise back up to the top eventually. So there's a bit of symbolism in the song, and it's just a gorgeous ending to begin with. And it makes you wish that it could go on, but appreciate everything that the Banks had gone through.
So, now that we're done with Mustang notes and the songs, let's move on to the film's cast. Now, let's start with Mary Poppins herself, played by the lovely Julie Andrews, whom was in films like The Sound of Music, the Shrek sequels, a few of the Despicable Me films, DC's Aquaman, Disney's Enchanted, and the Princess Diary films, which should be getting a third movie soon. Now, while Emily Blunt and several of my musical theater village friends like Sarah Baxter, Amanda Bopp, Kelly Griffin, Zandy Lopez, and Bailey Pace do great jobs, no one can ever top Julie Andrews as Mary Poppins due to her being a wonderful singer and dancer, and she really did deserve that Oscar for Best Actress back then. Anyway, to me, aside from her taking the Banks children on magical outings, and she can be kind, stern, and nurturing, I think she also gives great advice. Also, for some time now, I kind of think of Mary Poppins as a good mentor / teacher figure. Also, ever since I was little, one of my favorite scenes was the part where Mary Poppins unpacks her carpet bag. Also, I believe that Mary Poppins was one of the inspirations for Duchess Matilda in Sophia the First.
You said it, and I agree. And you know what? Despite what P.L. Travers said about Julie Andrews, I honestly think she looks pretty close to what the book was supposed to look like. And she also carries charm, dignity, and a maturity, while also a whimsy to her when playing the role. And she fits perfectly. She doesn't play one or the other. One being stern and absolute strict, like Mr. Banks want, or an absolute cheery disposition, and never cruel, like what Jane and Michael want. She's both. And I think that Julie Andrews knew how to do a perfect balance of it. And fun fact, she was originally supposed to be in the My Fair Lady movie, but when Walt Disney saw her on Broadway as Eliza Doolittle, he decided she'd be perfect as Mary Poppins and went backstage to talk to her about it and got her in her first major movie role. And for her first major movie role and winning an Oscar, how can you get better than that? And Julie Andrews to this day is just amazing, both as an actress and as a singer.
Next is her longtime friend Bert, played by the legendary Dick Van Dyke, whom was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang and the Night at the Museum films. Now, ever since my childhood, I've considered Bert as my favorite character in the entire movie, due to him being a Cockney jack of all trades. And I find it funny that he's the only character in the movie who breaks the fourth wall. Also, I like that Bert has at least 4 jobs throughout the movie: a one-man band, a sidewalk chalk artist, a chimney sweep, and a kite seller.
I love Bert so much, and I especially love the actor Dick Van Dyke and just how energetic and lively he is. And I know we're going to get this in the comments very likely, so I'll just get it out of the way. Um, Dick Van Dyke is clearly an American who is not doing a good British accent. But at the same time, I never cared about it because, you know what? He actually still delivers a fun, enjoyable, and lively performance, which is more than what I could say for other actors who delivered a very poor accent and didn't even try to have fun. But Dick Van Dyke is just addictingly fun. I mean, I guess you could come up with the theory that maybe, just maybe, he was an American who traveled to Britain and settled in, tried to match with everybody, but I'm coming up with some fan fiction, but it's fun. And so is this character. I love that he has this attitude of, I'm on God's good humor. I can live life. I'll do whatever I want. I'll have fun. I'll be adventurous. And even though this character is technically not in the Mary Poppins books, I mean, he kind of is in a short story called Mary Poppins and the Matchman, very, very loosely based. But I enjoy this character. I enjoy his performance. I enjoy how he's just happy to have air in his lungs. And look at this guy and the way he moves in these complex dances. I mean, that could not have been easy. And even today, at age 99, he's got more energy than I could imagine having at 99. So, long live Dick Van Dyke.
Next up are Jane and Michael Banks, played by Karen Daughtris and the late Matthew Garber. Jane is a high-spirited, bright, and precocious young girl, while her brother Michael is an excitable but naughty young boy who simply adores and looks up to his father. Plus, while they are close siblings and they are thick as thieves, there are times where both Jane and Michael can be mischievous and they behave in an attempt to seek attention from their parents.
I would say that both Karen Daughtris and Matthew Garber were excellent child actors. They were phenomenal. And, you know, I mean, I may not have much to say about Jane, though Karen does a wonderful job as the character. I both kind of mischievous and also very caring. But Matthew Garber, for me, steals it. I mean, he's very much like the Michael in the book. I mean, if I had to close my eyes and picture what Michael would be like, it would be Matthew Garber. Hands down, no comparison. He's got the same attitude, he's got the same kind of appearance, and he's very rude, and outspoken. And I love that. I mean, And these kids are just all around charming. And I do have to take a brief moment to say, rest in peace, Matthew Garber. You were phenomenal.
Next, we come to their parents, George and Winifred Banks, played by David Tomlinson and Glennis Johns. Now, from my perspective, George is the most important character in the story. While he is a strict, driven, and disciplined father who believes that his family should be run like a bank and believes that his children should be prepared for adult life in their youth rather than being allowed to have fun, it's revealed later that the reason why George is that way is because he's pressured by his job and his family traditions, which makes him very sympathetic when you think about it.
What I love about the movie Mr. Banks is that it could have so easily depicted him as a stick in the mud killjoy villain. Disney could have so easily gone for that. Heck, one of the reasons that P.L. Travers did not want Mr. Banks to have a mustache is because it made him look like a villain. But, I don't think facial hair got in the way for me, because David Tomlinson's performance shone through as very sympathetic, but very by the book, and wanting his life to go strictly a specific way. And if it did not go into a specific way, then it would be just pure chaos for him. And as a kid, I didn't get it. But as an adult, I get it more now, and I sympathize with him. And I think this is where the movie is even more clever than I originally thought, because most of the time, adults will look at a Disney movie and think, that's just kid stuff. That's just kid stuff. That's just kid stuff. This movie proves that no, it's not just kid stuff. Yes, there is stuff for kids, and yes, there's stuff that kids will learn from, but there's something here for adults too. And David Tomlinson pulled that off beautifully. And there was a reason that biopic about, or that Disney biopic was called Saving Mr. Banks, because he truly was the most relatable character out of everybody.
Also to note, in the stage musical, another reason why George is a strict and practical man is because he was brought up by an intimidating nanny named Miss Euphemia Andrew, aka the Holy Terror. She taught me everything I know, by the way.
I actually do remember, and the fact that she's not in the first book, but she is in the sequel book. Mary Poppins comes back, and Mr. Banks basically fears her worse than losing all his money. And yes, calls her the Holy Terror. And she pretty much lives up to her name. I have to briefly comment about Ellen Lanchester, because I don't know if this is deliberate casting or accidental, but it's actually fitting that she would be in there because, well, comparing the book and her acting career, so in Ellen Lanchester's acting career, she was the OG Bride of Frankenstein. And, well, and in the Mary Poppins book, it goes to say that, the Banks family were glad Kate and Anna had gone, for they had never liked her. She was old and fat and smelt of barley water. Anything that they thought would be better than Kate and Anna, if not much better. So, coincidence, I guess, and also probable coincidence. I mean, maybe this is just stretching it, but in the sequel book, Mary Poppins comes back. The drawing of Miss Andrew Lark, aka the Holy Terror, the Holy Terror, who was once Mr. Banks's nanny. Is it just me, or does she look almost exactly like the movie version of Katie and Hannah? Coincidence or accidental? Or coincidentally accidental? Or coincidentally deliberate? I'll let you choose.
As for Winifred, well, she's an easily distracted mother who is depicted as a member of the Emmeline Pankhurst Votes for Women suffragette movement.
Admittedly, with Winifred, she was the first time I learned about the suffragette movement. I truly didn't know about women's right. About women fighting to vote um, until this movie. So thanks, Sherman Brothers, for giving me something new to learn, and Walt Disney, of course. And when I finally did get round to reading the book, I was most definitely confused because the names were changed. This is probably one of the few name changes that happened from the book to the movie because the mother was not called Winifred, she was actually called Cynthia. And, well, I actually do kind of like this change. Cynthia's okay. It's a good name, but I don't know, Winifred just brings a better tone with this movie. And Glynis Johns really delivered a solid performance.
Moving on, we also have Uncle Albert, played by Ed Wynn, who voiced the Mad Hatter in Disney's Alice in Wonderland and played the toy maker in Babes in Toyland. Albert is a jolly gentleman who suffers from an unknown condition where he floats in the air due to his uncontrollable laughter, which Mary Poppins describes as quite serious. Although he likes having company over, he becomes sad and cries when his guests have to leave and he falls back onto the ground, since it is the inversion of laughter.
Ed Wynn's gotta be one of the most delightful actors that ever lived. He's just got such a cheerful personality and voice that is just so addicting, and he was perfect as Uncle Albert. I cannot think of anybody else who would laugh up a storm and just make it endearing. Except for Edwin.
The last two characters that need to be mentioned are my stage characters. The bank's neighbor, Admiral Boom, played by Reginald Owen, and the bank chairman, Mr. Dawes Sr., also played by Dick Van Dyke. According to Bert, Admiral Boom was a member of England's Navy, and he likes, and thus keeps his home shipshape. Also, there's a running gag where Boom fires his time cannon twice a day at precisely 8 a.m. and 6 p.m., which causes earthquakes for the Banks family.
It does kind of make me wonder how the first earthquake went in the Banks house.
As for Dawes Sr., well, he serves as the film's main villain due to him being a greedy and serious man, and he's considered as a giant in the world of finance during 1910. To me, while he doesn't have a lot of screen time, I think Dick Van Dyke was very unrecognizable as Dawes Sr., and I find him to be a man who's famous for precision and order in his family of investors. And while I was not the biggest fan of his villain song, Fidelity Fiduciary Bank, when I was young, nowadays I understand how it explains the wonders of finances. Later in the movie, not long after George loses his job, Dawes Sr. dies from laughter due to him hearing the wooden leg joke. However, in the stage musical, Dawes Sr. gives George a promotion to senior manager with a salary at quadruple his percentage rate.
This character was a lot of fun, and oh my gosh, I have to tell this funny story. So, as a kid, I had no idea who was playing this this guy, and It was just hilarious. And Papa came into the room and said, "That's the guy who's playing Bert." And I'm like, "What? No, no." Because in my little kid mind, I'm thinking, how do you age somebody so fast and then de-age them for the next scene? And it was just impossible. Even with the end credits, showing his name on there, first scrambled and then unscrambled, I couldn't believe it. And, well, nowadays, I think that is some fantastic makeup. And even though at 99 he looks nothing like that, it's hilarious how he played it off. And Dick Van Dyke used his slapstick routines to his advantage with this role. And it's hilarious to watch. And pulling off his elderly accent in the most exaggerated way that you could think of is just hilarious. Looking back at it. I also have to give a shout out to Mary Poppins Returns for bringing back Dick Van Dyke and for playing Dawes Jr. again in makeup, but if not that much makeup. And even Dick Van Dyke joked about that. Also, personally, I disagree. I do not see Dawes Sr. as a villain. Frankly, I don't see anybody in Mary Poppins as a villain, and I think that's bold of Disney to go for that. I mean, they could have so easily, like I said, in the Mr. Banks section, could have so easily picked either of those two to be a villain and pretty much make him two-dimensional. And I don't know if I can say that Dawes Sr. is three-dimensional much. He is intriguing, and in some areas he actually is relatable. And that's the thing about these characters. They're relatable. No matter how old you are, you relate to them in one form or another. And and in Dawes Sr.'s case, relating to him in the world of finance. And honestly, this song has become hilarious for me. I mean, yeah, it's educational, but Dick Van Dyke's exaggerated elderly accent gets me every single time, and it's hard to not laugh about it nowadays. And and the way that he and the bankers tried to talk the children into wanting to be investors, it works out in its own way.
Other actors in the film include Hermione Baddeley and Rita Shaw as the bank servants Ellen and Mrs. Clara Brill, Arthur Treacher as Constable Cody Jones, Jane Darwell as the Bird Woman, Marjorie Bennett as Miss Lark, Don Barclay as Boom's first mate, Mr. Binnacle, and Arthur Mallet as Mr. Dawes Jr. And now for our final words. Overall, Mary Poppins is a musical masterpiece and one of the most legendary films that Walt Disney has ever given us. It has great cinematography, memorable characters, classical songs, amazing choreography, and a story that's both fun, charming, and in the end, pull at your heartstrings.
Honestly, there's no other way to describe this movie except practically perfect in every way. I mean, this is still my favorite Disney live-action movie. Is it a perfect book adaptation? Absolutely not. But, well, this is one of those adaptations that I forgive because, you know what? It makes it its own story, and it works. And the character works in this environment and in this adaptation. Would I have loved to have seen Mary Poppins take the kids to the zoo at night, or or using the compass that goes anywhere on command? Absolutely. Those moments were right up Disney's alley, and look them up in the book, by the way. It's actually quite fun. But for what they've got in here, It's amazing. And it's impactful, it's touching, it's fun, it's funny, and it reaches out to kids and adults and appeals to both of them. On top of that, unlike most mediums nowadays, I feel a sense of love in this movie. Like, there was heart and passion in making this movie and in writing these books. Both P.L. Travers and Walt Disney cared about these characters, what they were doing, how to handle them, and I love how they did it. I I love how the book was written, and I love especially how the movie was made and the directions it took, the risks, and all to I mean all to keep a promise to Walt Disney's daughters. How much more precious can you get than that?
So together, we give this film a full 100%. Well, that's all for now, viewers. I'd like to thank Bonnie Joy O'Connor for joining me today. It really was wonderful working with you again.
It's been an absolute joy, Joshua, and oh, it looks like it's about time to go. But I hope we can do this again. This has been a lot of fun.
Well, to quote Bert, goodbye, Bonnie. Don't stay away too long.
Will do. And see you soon. Bonnie from Joy Unicycle saying see you later.
As for the rest of you at home, be sure to join me for my next blog, Mustang Power.